Hello everybody and welcome to Geopolitical Trends. My name is David Oualaalou. I just find out that a bank in Canada now has become the first in Canada to launch a credit card that tracks a customer's carbon emission. You all know where this is going. This is what I'm gonna be addressing in this video. But before I delve deeper into it, please subscribe and smash that notification button so for you to be notified every time a new video comes out. As I always say, I greatly appreciate your support. So here's the thing about this Canadian bank, which I will get into a detail about it here. So there are now concerns that such a scheme per se by this bank could one day be used to restrict purchases. Yeah, because this is where it's headed. And in an effort by the credit union to display its commitments to climate actions, you guys remember what I mentioned in my, I think when I did the video about Sweden, I mentioned something about climate change that it's just, it's nonsense. You had this elites and the billionaires flying, jetting from one continent to the next. They care less about emission. They care less about carbon action or that. It's nonsense. It's the reason that the government's using these tactics is to manipulate the masses. That's what it is. So the bank, it's called the Vancity, which is a Vancity Community Investment Bank. Will offer now a credit card. This is in Canada, by the way. Will offer a credit card that links, this is the key word, that links purchases to carbon emission, allowing customers to compare their monthly carbon footprints to the national average. Yeah, right. The bank will also advise, get this guys, the bank will also advise customers how to limit their carbon footprints. And I found a quote, by the way, by their chief external relations officer. And he said, and I quote, "We know many Vancity members are looking for ways to reduce the impact they have on the environment, particularly when it comes to the emissions that cause climate change," end of quote. He also added, and I quote here, "As a member-owned financial cooperative, we believe it is our job to do everything we can to help, especially when it comes to the decision people make with their money. This tool will equip Vancity Visa credit card holders with valuable information on their purchases and enable them to connect their daily spending decisions to the change they want to see in the world," end of quote. I just can't see the writing on the wall. It's as clear as it can be. As an analyst, you're going to have to see really what the long-term strategy is. And the long-term strategy of this is to slowly introducing the control of your financial spending. Canadians, being the way, as one who, if I may share the story with you, as one who lived in Canada, I understand that society very, very well. Canadians tend to be very, very polite, very friendly, wonderful people, and they're not gonna sort of whatever the government says goes sometimes, except for what we saw with the tracking, the tracking demonstrations, whatever. The Prime Minister, Dictator Trudeau, decided to embark on some some policies that have nothing to do with how Canadians are, or even Canadian laws are. Back then, when I was growing up as a kid, Canada was always perceived as one of the best countries in the world. Nowadays, you ask people in other parts of the world, they'd be shaking their heads about where Canada is. So here's the thing. According to one research, and the research was carried out by Visa. And by the way, guys, when it comes down to research, always track two things. Who's funding the research and who is the final author of the outcome of the research. And I'll share one story with you as I move forward here. So according to the research carried out by Visa, more than 50% of Canadians are interested in monitoring their carbon footprints. Let me just ask you a question. Do they truly understand what the implications are? Are there truly 50% of the Canadians? And this is one thing about research you have to understand. Sometimes there is, even within a research, there is manipulation. You look no further than what just took place with the vaccine stuff, how the data was manipulated. And the story that I want to share with you, if you allow me, is this. I'm going to take you back to 1966 or 65. It was a study that was conducted at Harvard University. That's why Harvard has its own dark side, by the way. Harvard. And the study was about the link between sugary drink and type 2 diabetes. Okay? That was back then, 1965. So the research was conducted, and what they found, the researchers, of course, they found that there is a link between sugary drinks and type 2 diabetes. So when you goggle up that Gatorade or Coca-Cola, whatever, coloring drinks, whatever, you are putting just chemicals in your body. So what happened after that? Right away, the beverage industry in Washington, the beverage industry rushed to those scientists and provide them about $60,000 back then. So you can only imagine what it's worth today. And the results of that research was quashed. Nobody heard about. It was till about 6 or 7 years ago. The lid was lifted from, I disclosed it to my students in classroom. They were like floored to find out that later on, indeed, type 2 diabetes is linked to sugary drinks. So it's no different than we were talking about here. Anytime you have to verify the data, of course. Anytime saying 50% of Canadians are interested. And who's conducting the research, by the way? Who's funding the research? It's Visa. So you can read between the lines. And Canadians will have to decide for themselves. And by the way, Canada this bank is the first in Canada, but Canada is not the first country to do this. Australia already did. The Commonwealth Bank in Australia also announced a similar scheme, giving the customer the option, get this guys, to pay a fee to offset their carbon footprints, with the average listed as about 1,280 kilograms, a long way from the sustainable figure of 200 kilograms. You'll see what's happening. Why, first of all, the first question you need to ask yourself is, why Canada and Australia? Well, look no further than what happened during COVID craziness. What did Canada do? And what did Australia do? I'll let you find that out. There are still certain things can be said on this platform, as you are aware of, which pains me to even realize in a democratic, so-called democratic society like ours, even what you say when you are challenging the assumptions of the government might end up being like not allowed. So what happened to that freedom of speech? Okay, first in the Constitution. So I'll let you find out about what Australia did when they embarked on those quarantine. So Australia is embarking on this. One thing they share in common, by the way, just FYI, Australia and Canada are always the testing grounds for what the elites on the global level or global system or global scale, whatever you want to call it, like the World Economic Forum. That's where they test certain aspects. So this is why I'm not shocked, I'm not surprised, but I thought you might want to know about this going on. You might not, if you happen to be in Canada, at least you are aware of it. So here's the thing. So anytime you start to think about this climate change, you're going to think in terms of the climate lockdowns. The technocrats wants to exploit this hysteria over this climate change to increase financial control over you. Now, if you happen to be a Canadian or Australian, you need to be aware of. If you happen to be in another country, that will be coming soon. Look no further than what just happened in Indonesia at the G20 summit, which I was shocked to even realize that Indonesia allowed its country and its forum to be used by the World Economic Forum in that case. What am I talking about here? I'm talking about the digital certificate that you will have to be issued, And by the way, both Bill Gates and Klaus Schwab attended G20. Are they a head of states? Are they elected? You got the answer. So here's the thing. Such proposal, like what they're talking about, was presented in the science journal Nature by 4 environmental so-called experts as a means of reducing global carbon emission. That's why I say, moving forward, if you embark on reading a research, make sure to find out who's financing that and who those experts are. And once you do, make sure to check their credentials. Not from last year, you have to go back a decade or so. Because anybody with credentials will have their some sort of expertise known in the public forum or public domain. So the thing that everyone will be issued with a carbon allowance card, that will entail all adults receiving an equal tradable carbon allowance that reduces over time in line with national carbon targets. You can just see where this is going. And this is basically what the authors of this research or this proposal were saying. So the authors made it clear. By the way, I'll post all the link for you with everything that I'm talking about so you'll have an idea where that information came from. So the authors made it clear that the program will be national mandatory policy. And I put this in quote. Yeah. And right there, for me personally, and this is my opinion, I read between the lines and I can see where it's headed. So carbon units will be deducted from the personal budget with every payment of transport fuel, home heating fuel, and electricity bills. And anyone going over the limit will be forced to purchase additional units in the personal carbon market from those with excess to sell. You'll see where it's really becoming clear. I'm sure you're smart enough to see where this is going. So this would naturally only negatively impact poor people once for all, because they won't have the means to finance something like that. And with the rich able to buy, get this guys, buy carbon credit in abundance and still enjoy the lavish lifestyle by jetting off from one continent to the next. So you can just see the system is rigged against you and I. We are the average people. That's why I'm like lost as to what's going on with the Western world that is losing its sense of directions. Is corruption really running that deep? Well, apparently it is. The system is corrupted to the core. People needs to wake up. That was the whole objective for why I'm doing all this. Do I want a fame for it? I care less for that. Do I want a title for it? I care less for that. The only question that I asked myself is, what am I doing for humanity? How can I contribute? What are the ways that I can contribute? And this is what I can come up with as of now, as of today, given the limited resources and all that. That's all I have at this point. My knowledge right here in my head. I'm sharing it with you. So here's my question for you for today. Do you think this strategy is the beginning of something much bigger in this dystopian world the World Economic Forum have planned. Let me repeat. Do you think this strategy is the beginning of something much bigger in this dystopian world the World Economic Forum have planned? Make sure to let me know what you think. As always, remember, geopolitics impact your daily life in more ways than one. Till next time, guys. Bye-bye.